Good evening, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of this video. Thanks for joining me again. I appreciate those of you that took the time to watch part 1. I know that it was extremely long. Again, I apologize. It took quite a while to break down everything that happened during that meeting. And here is where we're going to pick back up and kind of narrow our focus a little bit. Now, at the end of the last video, I believe I closed by saying that Councilwoman Smith was giving you a false choice. She fed you the narrative of our mayor, Gary Jones, unilaterally coming in and saying that we were going to have a rodeo, conducting secret meetings that she had no knowledge of, was never invited to, had other council members involved, exceeded his authority, blew up our budget. You know, by the time she got finished, you figured next week he'd pinch hit for the Antichrist. It was quite a show. It really was. And I'm afraid that the truth is a lot simpler. It's going to be a lot less dramatic than the picture she painted for you. But before we go in on exactly what her main argument was, let me just tell you the story of how this happened. Last year, our mayor went to a rodeo in Thompson. It was the same thing, American Pro Rodeo. He went with a friend of his, Al Reeves. Many of you may know Al Reeves is very active in Harlem. I believe he's a city council member in Harlem. I think Councilman Eric Blair went as well, and they all enjoyed it, and they all thought it was great. And over the next couple of months, you know, Gary and Al had talked, because they talk a lot, and Gary had said, you know, maybe we ought to try to do something like that in Grovetown, because it was a really good event. And it was somewhere, I think, around in December they were talking, and Gary was like, you know, I think I might want to try to do this. So he reached out to Al. Al Reeves was a sponsor of the rodeo. As you can see here in our Grovetown rodeo, right here, gold sponsor, right at the top, Reeves. Okay? And when Al said that, sure, we can see about getting it together, Gary sent an email out to the council members, I think that was around 1st of January, and said, hey, we're going to try to see about doing a rodeo. So what he did next was what he was supposed to do. He went to the Leisure and Rec director, David Carlin, and said, hey, I think this rodeo would be good for the city. I think we could really do a good job with it. It would be great. Bring people in. What do you think? And David Carlin said, well, yeah, let's see what we can do. So they started looking. They decided to see if they could get it budgeted. They had to get in contact with the rodeo people. Gary put the rodeo people in contact with Gary Carlin and the rest of the Leisure and Rec staff so they could, you know, schedule meetings and stuff so they could talk about it and see what was going on. And Gary, being as how he was a sponsor and a volunteer, acted somewhat as liaison, going back and forth, you know, answering questions, being the middleman on phone calls, you know, taking up a lot of that administrative time that employees otherwise would have to do, you know, facilitating a little bit for the city. And we had a rodeo. All right, now I know that's not a really big, dramatic story. Okay? The explanation is really pretty simple. So what I want to do here is I want to go back to about the first 4.5 minutes of Soretta Smith's speech. I'm sorry. I know you've probably heard as much of that as you want to. But let's listen to this again and let's plug in some details. Okay?
city attorney, I came up here and spoke with the financial director and the city administrator. And within hours of doing that, I received emails from the mayor revealing that there had been 3 to 4 meetings that had taken place about the rodeo. I did not know about these meetings. I was not invited to these meetings. I was not asked to participate in these meetings that other council members were involved in, that council members did attend. And again, I'm an elected official. And so if council members are attending meetings about events that are taking place in this city, I, as a sitting council member, have a right to attend those meetings and let my voice be heard as well.
Okay, see, right off, she came in with this thing about these meetings that other council members, plural, were involved in, and how she was never invited. Apparently something was trying to be hidden from her. Okay? Well, the simple fact of it is, David Carlin, Elaine Matthews, the people that she said were empowered, the people that she said do the day-to-day business of the city, they were the ones running it. Sylvia Martin supervises leisure and recreations. And they didn't invite her to a meeting because they didn't have to. They were doing their job. They were doing the job that not only they were hired to do, but that they were fully authorized to do. Let's keep going.
So this sparked more questions because there were meetings that I knew nothing about. Again, I wasn't invited to them, and I never received any emails with any follow-up after these meetings. As a city council member in this city, anytime I attend meetings, go to training or anything on behalf of this city, when I return, I send my council members an email. I let them know about what I learned. I let them know about things that I discovered that maybe we need to improve upon.
Okay, there. And that may very well be true. But what she's talking about and what was going on here were two completely different things. Nobody was going to these meetings to represent the city except the city employees, David Carlin, Elaine Matthews, and probably any other supervisor that was involved in this, to represent their departments and be part of this. No council members were invited in the capacity of a council member. Gary Jones was there because he was a sponsor and a liaison. And that's a really important distinction to make here. Because the narrative that she wants to give you, and I would point out that during this entire time, she is reading from a prepared speech, a script. All right? I've actually had people comment to me that when Gary did his response, he was nowhere near as well-spoken and organized as Miss Smith was. Well, yeah, he was upset. He was really upset that they had pulled this crap on him. And he was trying to, give the answers to the questions of theirs because she had so many different insinuations that she was making. But what you see there is the difference between a politician and a non-politician. Gary Jones has never claimed to be a politician, okay? And all this time as mayor has not changed him one bit. He doesn't go by a speech or a prepared script, because that's what that was. That was a prepared script that she had. He didn't need a script. He was going off memory. He was telling what happened. She needed a script. Because when you're going to tell a story, when you're going to put on a show, you need a script. Which is why you need to think about all the times you have on meetings, secrecy. She wasn't repeating that because she was trying to regain her train of thought. She sat down and prepared this speech. She wrote it out. And all that repetition was for the exact reason that I told you in the first video, to try to drive that in your head and make you believe that it's true. Let's keep going.
And so this isn't the first time that information has been withheld from me as a council member, and it's not the first time that I have addressed my concerns to this body about the way that we do not share information and the lack of information being shared. And so that led me to do an open records request.
Okay, now remember, she is saying this at the beginning of her speech last night. And right there, okay, right there is where she's trying to justify the fact that she never went to any of them and asked anything when she, quote unquote, came across this new information on April 19th that made her want to ask questions. You know, she speeds right through this, but she says, I've tried to ask before and I couldn't get information and all that. So that led to an open records request. Speeds right through that. Now you remember, even though she said that right at the beginning of her speech, all right, later on in, she tried to give you the impression that she had asked before she did this. She wound up getting busted out about that and got a little bit upset. But right there, she glosses over and gives you the excuse why she didn't do what she was actually supposed to do in this situation. Let's keep going.
And when I did the open records request, this revealed to me that there was months of work that went into preparing this city for the rodeo. This city was not ready to have a rodeo logistically. It was not ready. And so it revealed to me the hours of manpower that our employees put in to preparing this rodeo during their regular duty day while we were already short-staffed. Just by looking at the information that I received in this open records request, our employees worked to the bone for months on this rodeo. And we were not staffed to host this rodeo. We had to offer double time to compel our already exhausted employees to work this rodeo after they had just worked the Easter egg event the week prior.
Now, notice that language there. I was going to wait until she was done here, but that thing, we had to offer double time to compel our workers. Compel. You hear that word, you think we forced them to do it. No, that's not what happened. It was true that the rodeo wound up short-staffed. And what actually happened, and if she publishes this open records request that she asked for, you'll see it, okay? What had actually happened is they went and asked for volunteers. They said, hey, we are short-staffed. Can we get some volunteers? And they could only get about 6. Now, bear in mind that these volunteers were not going to be, free. They were going to be paid, but all they could get was 6. And so they told them, said, well, guys, 6 is just not going to handle it. What can we do that would make it worth your while to come do it? And the answer was unanimously money. Okay, I get that. There's an old expression, don't pat my head, pat my wallet. These guys had been working like they do. And as a side note, once again, I'm going to say, our grounds guys are top notch. They work their tails off every day. And the people that complain about them or are always criticizing them really need to shut up, because those guys go above and beyond. But that being said, they said, hey, look, just give us money. We want more money. You give us more money, we'll be happy to do it. So what do? They didn't try to get them to go out there for a thank you or a certificate or a participation trophy. They didn't pat their head. They patted their wallet. And what do you know? We had plenty of people to staff the rodeo when they did that. Let's keep going.
There was pushback on having this rodeo based on the open records request that I received, and it was ignored. And to say that the employees of this city, what the employees of this city went through to prepare this city for the rodeo was arduous is an understatement.
All right, the pushback on the rodeo, okay? When you hear that, you're going to assume that there were people saying, hey, I don't think we need to do this. We need to stop this. We don't need to be doing this. No, no, no. When she releases the emails, if she does, what you're going to see is right at the beginning, when they were in the early stages of it, the question was asked because you're discussing the rodeo. And here was the question. Do you really think that Grovetown will have the audience? Do you really think we can pull the audience for the rodeo? Not do you think we should have that. Do you think this could be a success? That was the question. That was the quote-unquote pushback. Wow. Well, I'm just going to say, here's a comparison for you. Our 4th of July barbecue that we do, all right, when they hand out the barbecue, that's free. All you have to do is drive up and get in line, and every automobile can get up to 4 plates of barbecue. Okay? I don't know if any of y'all go out to eat much to barbecue places. I personally love barbecue myself. I like to go out to eat. Barbecue places you go now are anywhere from $11 to $20 a plate. Okay? Our city's giving them away free. At the last 4th of July, they gave out, I think, between 2,000 and 2,500 plates. Okay? And that's no questions asked. Anybody that drove up got a plate. The rodeo, you had to buy tickets to get in. You had to pay to get in. And the attendance, I believe his numbers were somewhere between 8,000 and 9,000 people. So somewhere between half and 2/3 of the population of Grovetown over the 2 nights. So I'd say that question was answered. Let's keep going.
The request again revealed that there were several meetings and conversations about the rodeo. I was told that these conversations began in January with an email that was sent to council members about wanting to have the rodeo in April. However, in the open records request, I discovered an email from as far back as 9 December where there was conversation about having meetings for this rodeo.
Okay, that particular email, all right, she's trying to say, hey, I got you. You said it started in January when an email was sent to the council members. I would point out that what she just said was an email was sent to the council members saying we want to have a rodeo. So all this about her not knowing for months that it was being planned, that it was going on. Nope, sorry, January. We had the rodeo in April. But that email she found back in December 9th, that was actually Gary Jones emailing with Al Reeves saying, hey, remember we were talking about that rodeo? What do you think? You think we could actually do it? That's what that was. And then Gary Jones did what he was supposed to do. He alerted the council to what he was doing, and he went to the head of Leisure and Rec, David Carlin. So no matter how much you may think that something was done here in secret or trying to keep anybody out, if you were trying to keep somebody out, you don't send them an email right at the beginning of the thing. She knew. She had every opportunity to be involved. She takes every opportunity to be involved. Okay? She loves to be at the center of events. Miss Smith has never met a photo op she doesn't like. Let's be serious here. Now, that's not a criticism of some of the things that have been going on where we've had people coming in and getting recognition, local sports teams, things like that. That's fine. They deserve recognition. But have you noticed whose face needs to be in the middle of the picture every time? We had one at this city council meeting. And when she was telling the story, well, actually what happened is Mayor Jones got an email and decided that Gary got the email. And he decided, these people need recognition. But who ran down there to take the picture? Let that sit for a little while. Okay.
So the first mention of this was in December. The mayor initiated, he attended these meetings, and there was even an email where the person that was sponsoring the rodeo was instructed to call our leisure and recreation assistant and schedule meetings. So now you have people that don't even work in this city calling and giving instructions to our employees to schedule meetings. And I'm a sitting council member, and I can't even get invited to a meeting.
This is actually one of my favorite comments here. It is. Yes, Gary, when talking to the rodeo staff, told them to call Leisure and Rec and schedule meetings with them. And what that becomes is people that don't even work in the city are given instructions to our employees. Now, have you really thought about that? Number one, Gary didn't tell them to call him and he would schedule the meetings. No, he sent them to Leisure and Rec like he's supposed to do, because Gary was not in charge of this. Leisure and Rec was in charge of this. And number two, the rodeo people out of town, they had to have meetings with our staff, at least occasionally, and you know that they went on. So what do you do when you need to have meetings? You call and schedule with the people that you need to meet with. That's not giving them instructions. Seriously. How do you construe it as that? That's used as a segue to go right back to her little point. And I was not invited to the meetings. No, you weren't invited to the meetings. No council member was invited to the meetings. There was no need to. The employees were doing their job. And no council member was in charge of this, including the mayor. And this contention that calling and scheduling a meeting is telling our employees what to do. When Soretta Smith was first elected, I called and asked for a meeting, because she was put over planning and zoning, which has been my particular area of interest for years now. And I wanted to sit down with her and talk about some concerns that we had with the planning and zoning director. So I did what you do. I called her and I asked to schedule a meeting. I looked for a time when we could both be free to do it, and I told her I would work with her schedule, and I did. But that's not me instructing her to do anything. And that wasn't the rodeo instructing it. That was them conducting business. That was them actually doing what it took to pull this thing together. But she wants to make it sound like we've got outside people telling our employees what to do. I mean, come on, let that sink in for a minute. How ridiculous is that? How hard is she reaching for some drama there? And then just push to, and I wasn't inviting to meetings, and I'm a city councilman. Let's just keep going.
At least one council member I'm aware of attended meetings, Councilman Blair. And the request also revealed that the mayor was involved in the day-to-day operations. I've been receiving calls all day about responding to the mayor's email post, which indicates that council members are not involved in attending meetings that pertain to events that are happening in the city. But the open records request revealed that there was day-to-day communication with citizens, with the employees in this city about the rodeo. Yet here I am again, a council member, and I was clueless as to what was taking place. The email also revealed there were expenditures. The mayor was emailed and asked, well, should we do this? Should we do that? However, I keep being told that it was not anything that the council members needed to be involved in.
Yes. Yes, you were told that. You were told that by everybody, including our city attorney, because that's the way it's set up. Gary Jones was a volunteer for the rodeo. He was volunteering his time. He was coordinating. He was not there in the capacity of the planner. Yes, I'm sure they did have contact with him. What is it we need to do? Because he was facilitating that information. This had to be set up a certain way. And the rodeo people were out of town. They didn't have them there on hand. Okay? So Gary was there when they had questions, making the phone calls. Do we need to do this? What? Okay. Facilitating. Under the direction of David Carlin. But you want to make it like he's sitting there pulling everybody around like a puppet. Again, the drama. She wants to take what really happened and turn it into the worst story imaginable. See, because that has to fit with that script that she wrote for you. Now, not surprisingly, Councilwoman Smith had an ally. Someone else who felt apparently the same way that she did, and that would be Councilwoman Deborah Fisher. Now, for those of you that may be surprised by this, welcome to Grovetown, because you must be new here. Councilwoman Fisher has had a rather interesting relationship with our mayor from the time of her campaign on. So it really comes as no surprise that she is signing her name on this inquiry, quote unquote, as well. Those of you that have been here with me all this time, you've heard this enough. But let's just take it right now, and I'm going to play just a couple little excerpts from what her speech was. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to just say something small here. And I want you just to bear with me for a minute. Thank you, Councilmember Smith. She said most of what I had on my mind. But let me start off by explaining so that you can get a better sight picture of what's going on and why there is an inquiry involved with the city, and my name is on it. My name is also on that inquiry. The city of Grovetown, just like what the state considers other small cities, has a government run by a weak mayor and a strong council.
I told you in the other video, this is a drum she's been beating forever. And even though Soretta Smith just said this, she could not resist but to throw it at you one more time. Let's keep going.
That's our form of government in this city. It is like that because it precludes one person on this council from making all the decisions. I can't make decisions about the city by myself, legislative decisions. Neither can the mayor. We're all on the city council. And that's why small cities like this have this form of government, so that one person cannot run away with the city. Because with a budget of this city, one person can bankrupt the city. And that's why we have rules like that. It doesn't take but a minute. One person can bankrupt this entire city because this city is not big. It's important because once we let it get away from us, I'm telling you folks, it's a problem. It's a problem for this city. Because if you look out there and you go to some of the meetings we go to, we have cities that can't even afford sewer and water. We have broke cities that can't even afford to pay a police force. We don't want to look like that in the future. So it's better for us to make sure that we're doing the right things and holding everybody accountable. Because if we let one person run the finances of this city, and this is not the way the ordinance is written. The city ordinance has anything to do with finances, it's the city council. It's not the mayor, it's not one city council member, it's not two, it's the city council. So small cities are designed this way to protect the city. However, if someone on this council does something differently than what the ordinance calls for with our city money, unilaterally by themselves, then it's up to this city council to call them out. Every member of this city council should be on this inquiry because something happened that shouldn't have happened. And every member of this city council should be concerned about that. Not just me, not just one other person, but every member, because this is the finances of this city. And we can't just sit back and let the city run away from us. So I'm concerned, and every city, and I was voted in office by you. And it's my job to be concerned. It's my job to follow the money and be concerned because I'm concerned about my city. And every council member up here should be speaking right now because they should be concerned about this city.
Okay. It's about accountability. It's about somebody violating the ordinances of this city and could bankrupt the city. Now, we've already gone over this ad nauseum. That didn't happen. But just like Soretta Smith's prepared speech, her script, Councilwoman Fisher is staying on script. And of course it's just those two, but she doesn't understand that. She's just trying to have some accountability. Every council member should be on this. Because she's just doing her job. Looking out for you. She's looking out for this city. That's her job. Okay.
But I just wanted to explain to you why I was on the inquiry. It's nothing personal. I don't hate anyone, but I'm working a job for my city, for my citizens, for the taxpayers, to look out for the city of Grovetown. And that's what I'm going to do, folks. So I just want to let you know that I don't have anything personal. This is just an inquiry that I got involved in because of my concerns.
Okay. It's nothing personal, just like Councilman Smith said. It's nothing personal. Notice she didn't say it was anything political. I guess she didn't think to do that. But, yeah. Again, with the narrative, accountability. One person bankrupting this city, one person doing it unilaterally. Everybody should be on this. It's our job to look out for your money. Well, that is an interesting tactic to use, Councilwoman Fisher. It really is. Now, many of you may remember, or if you're newer here, you may have heard about this in the news. Some years ago, we had a little bit of a problem with our city clerk, Vicky Capitillo. It's a long, involved story that I will not go into now. Let me just summarize by saying that it was the reason that Gary Jones campaigned, because he began to have suspicions that city money was being mishandled. Miss Capitillo was the stepdaughter of former mayor and present council member Dennis Trudeau, present at this time. That is him you see seated there to Miss Fisher's right. Mayor Jones fought very hard to get a forensic audit. At first he could not, because when he was elected mayor, not enough of the council would vote for it. The GBI could not come in without either the council voting for it or him having some hard evidence. Okay. Eventually he got some hard evidence, brought the GBI in. Then we got a forensic audit. This bit of video that I'm about to show you came from the night that they gave their findings. And they finally told everyone, yes, they found $800 and something thousand missing from just the 15-month interval that they did the audit on. There's no counting for the other years. Just that 15 months, $800 and something thousand was unaccounted for. That was what Ms. Capitello finally wound up pleading guilty to in a plea deal in federal court. But after this was done, we were at the city council meeting and different people were asking questions. And once again, my friend Carla Harrison had asked the question of Councilman Dennis Trudeau. You know, she was your stepdaughter, and you fought so hard against the audit. Okay, he did more than that. He actually called a secret meeting. You want to talk about secret meetings? And tried to get an investigation into Mayor Jones for creating a hostile work environment because he was trying to get Vicky Capitello investigated. This hostile work environment theme is one that Councilwoman Fisher has tried to play on Mayor Jones constantly. She hasn't been about it for the last year or so. She was really bad when she first got elected, to the point where he had to have announced in a city council meeting that any further action like that, and he would be hiring an attorney, go after her, because nothing she ever said turned out to be anything. But at this point, Carla Harrison wanted to know what the deal was, why Dennis Trudeau did all this, and Councilwoman Fisher spoke up for him. Okay? Now, this is the same Councilwoman Fisher that you just heard talk about accountability and what the damage one person can do and how it's her responsibility to the taxpayers and how every council member should be in on this inquiry. Now, I apologize for the sound and everything. This was recorded with a phone back then. We did not have the setup that we have now. But let's play this for you.
And that's what I don't understand.
Because it was his daughter, and he didn't want to believe it. Had it been your daughter, you probably wouldn't have wanted to believe that something like this could happen.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher, thank you.
You know, you have no idea. You know, if it was my daughter, I wouldn't believe that something like this could happen. I would also reject the audit.
That's the reason.
So he's
Okay. You hear that? If it had been her daughter, she wouldn't have believed it, so she would have just rejected the audit. Now, I know that was some years ago, but one thing that I think that really demonstrates, and this is something that I've had a problem with Councilwoman Fisher for some time, when you are a sitting council member, it is really important that you not have any conflict of interest, that you not have your personal feelings get involved with your decisions. You do not have your finances affect your decisions. You do not use your position on the council to alter things that you don't like, to make things happen, to push them through. And this has been a problem with Councilwoman Fisher. It has. Okay, so getting back to the city council meeting, just because Councilwoman Fisher was not saying a lot during the meeting doesn't mean she wasn't trying to help. Here she is in the Facebook chat from the Facebook Live video. The city did not gain any funds from the rodeo event, and the city also used money from Grovetown Water and Sewer Fund, according to documentation, while at the same time discussing going up of utility rates. Citizens should be outraged. Okay. Number one, the two things have nothing to do with each other. They actually discussed that in the council meeting that night. And Councilwoman Fisher had to be reminded. She didn't even know what was going on. Our finance manager, our budget manager, said that they were doing a study where they were looking at possibly going up on the water rates because they haven't in 6 years, and there's been inflation. They haven't decided to do it. They were just going to look at it on whether or not it was necessary. They don't want to do it. They've been talking about it for a while now, since before the rodeo. Okay? That had nothing to do with the rodeo. And as for money coming out of the water and sewer fund, this is just another prime example of taking something that they know better and trying to make it look like you're being ripped off. Here's the deal. In preparation for that rodeo, among all the other things that they had to do, there was a type of topsoil that they needed. You went through a special process. I think it's called screening. Okay? Needed a lot of it. Turns out we needed it for our water and sewer plant as well. So as a money-saving procedure, instead of just buying it for the rodeo, they bought enough to where they could have it for the rodeo and for the water and sewage plant. And when the rodeo was over, they went and collected all of that material and took it over to the water and sewage plant. That's where that came from. Now, I'm going to play you one more little blurb here from Councilwoman Smith. Okay?
And every time I ask a question, the response is, "You're behaving like Fisher." What does that mean?
Well, since you've told us that you like to ask questions, and that's a really good question, I'm going to take a shot at answering it for you. Let's see what you've done here. Okay? You've taken an event that, by all accounts, you were very excited about. You knew that was coming, even though you claimed that you had no idea all this work and everything was going on. You claim you have these concerns that the mayor broke all these rules and ordinances, that he's going to bankrupt the city, even though our city attorney and everybody else is telling you that's not the way it happened. There's nothing wrong with this. You're the one that broke the ordinances, you and Councilwoman Smith. And by the way, you owe the city $2,500 because you broke the charter. You broke the charter by starting an investigation, inquiry, whatever you want to call it, unilaterally. You were the one that did something unilaterally, ma'am. And you've taken us through all of this, even though it's not supposed to be anything personal. It's not for political use. But you made sure and alert the media so they could have the film crews here and they could go ahead and publish stories in the paper so you can try this in the court of public opinion. You didn't say anything to any other council members. You didn't even make a statement to the Grovetown public. You didn't do any of that. You wanted to come in here with your partner and put on this whole show. And you had help. You had help. You had people in the Facebook comments. One of them, oh, our tax dollars. Oh, she was just going on and on. Oh, comments are being deleted. The woman didn't even live here. Okay. You want to know what you're acting like Fisher means, ma'am? Well, that's pretty much it. So now that we've gone through all this and we've looked at what happened and what didn't happen, let's look at possibly why it happened. Now, Councilwoman Smith says that this is not personal. This has nothing to do with politics. This is not political. She's just looking out for our town. I do question that. All right, and I'm not going to be as forceful in this particular section as I was in some of the other sections. Part of that was my outrage at the way this was done. Okay? But now I'm going to go at a little bit different pace here. One thing I do know is that her claim of getting some sort of new information at that budget meeting, April 19th, I don't buy that. Because like I told you before, I spoke with several people that were at that budget meeting. It was open to the public. There was no new information released. And if you remember, I also told you that April 19th was a busy day for Grovetown. Well, there's something else that happened on April 19th. That's right. Our mayor, Gary Jones, who up to that point had stated plainly that he had no intention of seeking re-election. He was done. And, after this fiasco Monday night, I can't say that I blame him. He announced that he was interested in seeking re-election. And the response was pretty much overwhelmingly do it. Okay? Maybe a coincidence. I don't know. I have a theory. When Soretta Smith ran for city council, I did not support her. I supported an opponent of her named Marcia Dale Keating. Now, that surprised a lot of people because Marcia and I had some very public disagreements. We have disagreements on policy and opinion. And before that, I had supported Marcia's opponent in the special election, Alan Transo. And when Soretta Smith started running, I had heard, absolutely nothing about her. Says she lived there in Grovetown 15 years. I'd never seen her, never heard her, never knew anything. Well, it turns out she has her own ministry. The doctor in her title, Dr. Soretta Smith, is an honorary doctorate given by a church. And, they give those for going above and beyond, doing things in the church, contributions. So I'm not one of them that's saying that, it got bought online because you can do that. That's not it. It's not an actual doctorate. It's an honorary one. But apparently she's very involved with church, very involved with ministry. She is an author. I believe she has 5 or so books out. Just wrote her first children's book, if I'm not mistaken. National Vice President, Women in Fair Practices. She's very, very vocal in issues pertaining to women in the workplace, women's rights, union rights. As a matter of fact, here is the AFL-CIO Global giving her a shout out for winning her election in Grovetown City Council. She's a very active, very connected member of the Democratic Party. There she is on Georgia Democrats. She's very well funded. We were surprised when she did a run. She actually had people here from Atlanta. She's very well funded. But she goes far back in the Democratic Party, just like Deborah Fisher, just like our former mayor and council member, Dennis Trudeau. She is a very vocal supporter of Stacey Abrams, who many of you are familiar with from voting rights, and Stacey Abrams has been the one basically given the most credit for quote-unquote turning Georgia blue. She was nominated for a Nobel Prize for that, as a matter of fact. And Dr. Smith is very outspoken on social issues. She does not mind voicing her opinion. Now, it's funny, we had somebody on the political forum post an episode here of this show, Talk Therapy Live, and where they were talking about the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd, which, as you know, was like a national outrage. And I actually watched some of it. She was very well spoken. But this evening, today, sometime, when you go to click on the link, it's private now. You can't do that. Now, as a side note, I don't know why you did that. I don't know if you're thinking maybe it's a smear or whatnot. What I'm doing here has nothing to do with her political affiliation. I don't care that she's a Democrat. I don't care that she supports Stacey Abrams. Personally, there's a lot of things that Soretta Smith, stands for that I agree with. On a lot of social issues, I am much more liberal. I'm an independent that leans liberal on social issues. So that's not my problem. The problem that I had with her when she was running, and I'll just be straight out with you, was the fact that the impression was given that she was definitely an ally of Councilwoman Fisher. And in my opinion, electing Councilwoman Fisher has not turned out well for us. And it surprised me that, with all of this that she'd done, with as active as she'd been in politics, I'd never seen or heard her at any of the city council meetings. A few years ago, I brought up the thing about Vicky Capitello. This city went through one of the worst times it's ever been through. I was there constantly. You guys remember how it was. I was making videos then. Never saw her until she decided to run for city council. And then I found out that she wasn't really interested in the local government because she was setting her sights a bit higher. She ran for the Georgia Senate District 23 seat and was defeated by Max Burns in 2020. Now that explains a lot. That explains why she wouldn't get involved in the local politics. Her attention was going bigger. And she made no secret of the fact that she had political aspirations. Again, that was one of my problems with Fisher. Fisher had made it plain that her run was somewhat of a stepping stone. I believe she intended to be mayor at some point. I believe she's come to terms with the fact that that's never, ever going to happen, in my opinion. But Councilwoman Smith was defeated by Max Burns. And I've actually watched some of their debates in the town hall. And I've seen a couple of his interviews. And the one thing that he hammered her on was her inexperience in government. So, and I'm just spitballing here. I'm assuming that after that happened, because she was defeated by like 12 or 13 percentage points, it wasn't even close. She thought that maybe she needed to add to her resume the fact that she had been key in local government, so why not run for her local city council and then possibly for mayor? And, that ties in with a few things here. Grovetown is the largest growing city in Columbia County. The Democrats have made no secret of the fact that they are trying to transform Georgia. And I have no comment on that either way. Okay? But what I'm saying is she's very well connected. She's very well funded. And Stacey Abrams, part of her strategy through Georgia has been to get as many Democrats as she could in the local governments because it filters on up. Also use that as a stepping stone to get into the state governments, and it goes all the way to federal. And it's a great plan. It's well thought out. So it seems to me that whereas historically Democrats have had a very hard time getting a foothold in Columbia County, this may be an effort to use Grovetown as a launching pad. Now, unlike all the things I said earlier, I have absolutely no proof of any of this, okay? This is just me giving my opinion, but it sounds about right. It sounds about right. And you know what? Honestly, I'm not even going to fault her for doing that. This is what she's decided to do with her life. Okay? And again, there's a lot of things that she speaks on that I agree with her, that I admire the work that she's done. The problem that I have here is that if, as I believe, Monday night was the first shot in her campaign. Now, I say the first shot because she's been campaigning since she got elected. All those photo ops, But once she saw that Gary Jones was not going to step down out of the way, and let's face it, despite the fact that there's people that like to talk down about him, he's extremely popular in this city for a reason, folks. And I'm thinking that maybe him saying, I might run again, might have made her decide that she needed to do something a little bit different. And that's what I take exception to, the way she went about it, if that's what happened. If that was the motivation behind this, and I don't see any other way that it could have come about. Like I said, I'm an independent and I lean liberal on social issues, and there are a lot of us out there, a lot of independents. Some stay in the middle, some lean left, some lean right. But let me tell you what we're all sick of. We're all sick of these types of politics. We're all sick of a zero-sum game. We're sick of us and them. We're sick of it. That's not the way this country was set up. This country was set up so that people with competing ideas could come together, discuss those ideas, come to a compromise that was mutually acceptable, and we move forward. We did it that way for 200 years. And in my lifetime, I watched it go to hell. And it's because of dirty politics. And Democrats have accused Republicans of dirty politics, and I'm here to tell you they're 100% right. But Democrats need to remember that Bible verse. He who is without sin cast the first stone, because we're sick of the stuff that the Democrats are doing too. So my suggestion, if this is political, and I think it is find a different way to do this. You have started a mess here. You have started a mess that is probably going to grow and grow and grow, and it's going to overshadow the real business that needs to be done in this city. And that's a shame. That's a shame. Because we deserve better. We deserve better than that. Okay, so this video has started to run a little long, so we need to wrap it up. But I have one more thing that I need to put in front of you. If you'll remember, I told you that first I would explain to you what really happened. Then I would explain to you what I thought the motivation was behind it. And then I had something else to tell you about. In the first video, I told you that I had planned to go to the city council meeting anyway. And this was because of something that was up in front of the council. It was a project over off Old Brazilia. Now, this is something that had come up in October and been shot down. I was there. I helped to have it shot down. It's a huge development being put in there on a place where most of us feel that the infrastructure won't handle it. It's already overcrowded now. I had come up during citizen comment time to ask some questions. Now, let me play this for you.
Let me re-ask that question. Is the annexation, is the rezoning contingent on the annexation? Is that what she asked you?
Now, I want you to pay attention to the fact that Soretta Smith has grabbed her little digital timer there and is trying to cut me off. And she does cut me off. She indicates to the mayor and to the city attorney that my time is up.
Mr. Bargeron, your time is exceeded.
Oh. Okay.
Can you wrap it up quickly?
Okay, sure. I'm actually going to just stop here. I had some concerns I wanted to voice. I don't think this has been done in an above board manner. I don't understand why they spent 6 months looking at this and have not answered a single concern that y'all brought up at the meeting. This is your department, Ms. Smith. You meet with them regularly. In the last 6 months, I would have thought that you would ask them on this big project that they're working about, have you done anything to mitigate any of the concerns?
And that was basically what I was there for, because, see, the backstory is when they first came up, there was a big hoodoo about the traffic and everything. Originally, they wanted to put like 95 houses and some apartments in there. And when they debated it in front of city council, this time, those concerns were brought up. Deborah Fisher actually asked the question, we've seen this before, we're revisiting it. Have you done anything? And Mr. Kurtz said, no. Well, have you looked at the possibility of anything that we can do? No. Well, are there any plans in the future to do anything? No. So basically, our planning and zoning committee had spent 6 months doing nothing but repackaging the same thing. It's 105 unit now, 105 unit housing. They dropped the apartments. R2 zoning. And brought it right back in front of us, but all the traffic issues, all the infrastructure issues are still there. Did not make any attempt to do anything to mitigate it. And I had a problem with that. But the question that I was asking when Miss Smith cut me off, and this is important, is I was turning to Mr. Kurtz and I was saying, is the annexation contingent on the rezoning? Now, one of the council members had asked that before, and what that basically means is the annexation only going through if we rezone? And they meant from the city's perspective. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant at all. And she knew that. She knew that. Which is why she cut me off. Because the question that I was going to ask is it contingent from the applicant, which is the builder and the developer? Now, they, of course, voted to pass it, okay, over any objections. But two other things happened that I want to draw your attention to before I give you the lowdown on this, okay? Let's start with this. It's a comment by Councilman Eric Blair.
Yeah, I want to say something. I see right now on Facebook Live, we got 108 people watching, plus the folks in here. And I know there are some folks that are against this annexation. So, bottom line is, that property right now falls in Columbia County.
Right.
If Columbia County said, you know what, we want to put 200 or 400 or 800 apartments or 800 townhomes or whatever they wanted to put on there, this body cannot say anything against them. They can put what they want to put in there, and we don't have a say in it. So we as a council believe that this is probably the best thing that we're going to get with that piece of property, and it's a...
Okay. Now, I've not ever heard them talk about that before. And that's quite a statement to make. Hey, if we don't bring this in, Columbia County could go in there and they could put 200, 300, 400 apartments on there, and there's nothing we can do. Well, that seems a little odd that Columbia County would actually do that. Now, I know Columbia County loves stuffing things in wherever they can get it, but that property is basically an island inside Grovetown. And being as how Grovetown is so important to Columbia County, I don't know that they bully us like that. That would be extreme. Somebody would have to put some serious pressure on them to make them do that to us, wouldn't you think? Now, the other little clip that I want to play for you, this is actually Councilwoman Deborah Fisher. And I want you to listen to this question right here, okay?
I do have a question to come off of what he just said. The gentleman that just left was talking about the traffic issue that we addressed last week. And the builders were very nice and very cooperative, and they said, well, they'll wait until we fix our traffic issues down there. Did we get anything in writing, an MOU or something from the builders that state that this is going to happen, that they'll have patience with us until we do our thing, or will we just, you know, I just want to make sure that we,
So 2 points to that. Number one, it's not my understanding that anyone said that we're going to be contingent or wait upon this. I believe what was expressed was that the natural phasing of how this is going to occur would work out to where it was going to be a few years before anybody would be living there in the first place. So that it was never a quid pro quo in that regard. Second of all, Bradley here, the assistant city administrator, has an update as to when we can expect that development to occur.
Okay, so to translate for you, in the work session meeting, when that was brought up, what the developer had said was, well, the way that we have it staged out, it's going to be 20 houses a year. It'll be this long before they start moving in. So it'll be fine for the things that you need to do on the road. And Councilwoman Fisher, to her credit, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due, was saying, hey, do we have that in writing? Or are we just, you know, we just going along here? And our director of planning and zoning did what I used to like to call a John Waller. He used about 75 words to say no. John Waller used to do that whenever you used to ask him a question that he didn't like or didn't want to answer. His favorite tactic was, let me be sure I understand what it is you're asking, and then he would go off on something not even close to what you're asking and give you an answer to something you could give less of a damn about. Mr. Kurtz, his tactic is to take a very simple question, do we have anything in writing, and complicate it to give the impression that, well, no, but it'll be fine. We have a working relationship. Everything's going to be fine. So they did vote to pass it. And I mean, you know, that should be fine. That should be fine, right? Right? They want to come here. They want to do good business. Everything should be okay, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. I'm not going to do like Mr. Kurtz and use a whole bunch of complicated words. I'm going to get right straight to the point. The question I was asking Miss Smith or Mr. Kurtz that Miss Smith cut me off on, is the annexation contingent on the rezoning? And the answer is yes, it was, from the developer. Let me explain what I mean by that. The developer was putting in for an annexation to have that property brought into the city of Grovetown, but only if they gave them the zoning they wanted. Because they had told planning and zoning flat out that if Grovetown did not give them what they wanted, then they were going to go to Columbia County and use every influence they had to stuff as many apartments in there as they could and ram them down our throat. Yeah. That's why Eric Blair made the comment that he did. So our planning and zoning department not only did not do anything over 6 months with these developers to address any of the problems that were brought about traffic or any of the other infrastructure, because traffic's what always gets the attention. There's plenty of other infrastructure problems. Not only do they do that, they let them blackmail us and made sure that nobody in the public knew it until it was passed. So that seems, a little off to me. Does it seem a little off to you? I would think so. Of course, we've seen that sort of thing before from Prather. And by the way, this is Prather. All these little investment groups and all that, that's Prather behind it. That's Prather. They come in here and they say they want to do good business with us until we don't want to give them exactly what they want. And then they threaten us. Last time they threatened us with a lawsuit. Well, they didn't threaten us with a lawsuit this time. Because guess what? Yeah, we were already getting sued. That's right. Also on April 19th, Foresight Investments, which is run by a gentleman named Matt Eschelbach. He was sitting in the audience that night. That's his project for Stanley Martin Homes. Not only did they blackmail us into doing that and getting what they want, they're already suing us to make us capitulate on some other details on some other projects. But yet our planning and zoning is coming to you like they're doing good faith business with us. And all of this is going on. And whose department is that? Really? Really? Now, this is nothing new. And this speaks to something that has been going on for years that we will not get into in this video. There will be another one, because I'm here to tell you that little speech that Soretta Smith gave about, wanting to find out things and being pushed aside and being ignored because they know there's nothing you can do. Remember, I told her I could sympathize with her. Oh, she has no idea what I've been through. That's the problem that we have in this city. It's not the mayor. It's not the mayor. It's we have developers taking us to the cleaners. We have problems in this city that need to be addressed. And this political campaigning stuff that's going on, this attack on the mayor, I believe is politically motivated. I don't have time for this, especially not when this is going on in your department and you're doing nothing about it. As a matter of fact, you actively kept me from saying anything about it. So I'm saying something about it now. Do better. I hope all y'all have enjoyed this video. It was fun to do them again, even though it's a pain. I know they're amateurish. They take a while to do. But I will be getting the hang of it again, because there's more to come. Y'all have a good night.